Hello and welcome to this episode of We Used To Be Journos. If you are watching this on YouTube, you might have noticed that this is a slightly different introduction, and that is because this is a special episode of the podcast. It was recorded live in Melbourne on Saturday, the 20th of September. Don't worry though, you're still going to get two media insiders breaking down broken news. You'll get the no's and you'll get the yeses from us, as well as our big chat in the second half of the show. And on top of that, you'll get about 250 people nodding along and occasionally laughing at our terrible jokes. So it is a little looser than our regular show, and dare I say it's a little bit more personal. And towards the end, we answer audience questions. But other than that, it's the show that you know and love. So enjoy this week's episode of We Used To Be Journos and see you at the next live record. Well, hello everybody and welcome to this special record of We Used To Be Journos, the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. My name is Fran. I am one of those media insiders, and with me is my co-host Antoinette.
Hello, and 250 members of the Ette. Can I hear you?
Yes, if you are listening to this in your ears, we may sound a little different. That is because we are doing a live show here at the Wheeler Centre in Melbourne.
You know what was so exciting and also a little bit confusing? Jan had to have some words with the Wheeler Centre when tickets went on sale. She sent an email. She was like, the website is broken. People are telling us that they cannot buy tickets. Can you please fix the website? The website is broken. But it turned out
We'd sold
out.
We'd sold out
in a few hours. So much so that my own sister, who lives in Melbourne, couldn't come and doesn't have a seat. So she's listening in the bathroom. So I'll be speaking loudly for her. But thank you so much for being here. I want to describe, for those of you who don't know my wonderful co-host, I thought allow me to do the introduction. Fran she has a Walkley Award-winning opinion. She has a track record of being hilarious and being able to sort of break down some of the biggest issues, and lately has a reputation for being sad and crying on the internet.
That's true. That's true. I do have that reputation. And the award-winning opinion comes in very, very handy because I actually technically do have an award-winning opinion that I like to throw at my husband every now and again when he, packs the dishwasher incorrectly, and I say, well, you shouldn't pack it like that. And he said, well, I have packed it like that. And I said, yes, but I have an award-winning opinion. And my opinion is that you packed it incorrectly. And we're divorced now. So I should probably do a bit of a bio for Antoinette as well. So Antoinette, some of you may know, is a verb.
Yes.
To get latoofed, which means...
It is in the Urban Dictionary.
It is literally in the Urban Dictionary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is to be stood down for something that you believe in. And so I can say, hand on heart, I don't think that I have met a person with as much courage as this woman sitting here beside me this evening. It's true. It's true. And I say this to everyone. I say Antoinette has got the most courage of anyone that I know. Either that or she is just insane.
Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both?
Do you like Crazy Brave?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Crazy Brave.
I think I am. I think it is Crazy Bravery. And this is... Hello.
Oh.
Hello, gorgeous.
Our youngest Etterati.
We've got to enlist them young. We've got to enlist them young.
Yeah, and they say you need to attract younger audiences, bitch. They are here. We love that.
This episode is actually our 3-month anniversary. So that means the probation period is up. And so we are with you going to review how we have found the last 3 months being independent media moguls, being partners, how it feels to be the mogul with less billions and more anxiety. That's the big chat in the second half of the show.
Yep.
We're going to talk also in that second half of the show because of the growing independent media scene in Australia and how we're navigating it. We have our usual no from me. Jan, you're not feeling the music. You've got, like, as I mentioned earlier,
I got a Eurovision related no.
Yes, you do. You have little joy generally, but this in particular, you took issue with the soundtrack.
Yep.
My no is with the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun. You're probably thinking, what have they done now? I mean, the short answer is heaps, but I have something in particular, and I've got the receipts. And that's what happened, what played out when the Jewish Council of Australia tried to run an ad, a paid advertisement in the newspaper about Jews against genocide.
Yes, and the bit that we're going to do a little bit differently with this show, because we've got so many of you wonderful Eterati here with us, is open the floor to questions. And there will be a roving mic, so we'll let you know when that's about to happen. You could pop your hand up and then somebody will come with a mic so that you can ask a question that works for audio as well.
Yes, and as much as Jan, you didn't want to do it, I insisted we do a quick yes from me.
Yep.
We are going to give a nod and a shout out because not everyone is awful, just most people.
Yes, exactly. So before we get to the yeses, we like to start with the no's, as you know. And my no from me comes to us courtesy of SBS. SBS is refusing to boycott Eurovision if Israel competes next year. Couple of boos there. Yep. Let it out.
The baby should cry. This is a good time for the baby to cry.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. We'll know when things are really bad. So let me just give you a little bit of background on this. In December, the European Broadcasting Union, the EBU, which runs Eurovision, is going to make a decision on whether Israel is permitted to compete. You see?
We wanted to gag too. We did.
And SBS has said, look, whether they're allowed to compete or they're not allowed to compete, we are going to Eurovision and we're going to broadcast Eurovision. So there have been a couple of countries that have boycotted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's boycotted? There has been Ireland, Slovenia, Spain, the Netherlands, and Iceland. They have said they're not going to participate if Israel competes.
Yes, correct. Yep. And so just to give you a kind of a slight different context, in 2022, the EBU excluded Russia from the competition, if you're wondering why. The EBU said that in light of the unprecedented crisis in Ukraine, the inclusion of a Russian entry in this year's contest would bring the competition into disrepute. And I would tend to agree. And so the question is, if Russia was banned from the Eurovision Song Contest, why is Israel not banned from the Eurovision Song Contest? And so to give you a little bit of a kind of background, it's actually not countries that make the decisions here. It is the broadcasters of respective countries, because Eurovision is actually run by the EBU and it's the member countries of the EBU that get to make these decisions. So it doesn't really come down to, Spain can boycott, Slovenia can boycott. It's actually their broadcasters that boycott. So it does fall on the shoulders of SBS to make that decision. And they've just decided to walk slowly backwards into a hedge and not make any decisions. And just to continue as per status quo. And I think part of the reason, Antoinette, is because with Spain and Slovenia and Ireland, there's actually been a lot of pressure that's come both from the people and from the top.
Yes.
Their leadership has been quite strong on Israel. Our leadership, not as strong, I would say.
Yeah. Also, in SBS's defence, Eurovision is the marquee, most highly rated program.
Surely one of,
Yeah, one of. 2.2 million Australians tuned in, and, that's huge for SBS audiences.
Yeah,
the evening news or something like Insight might get a couple of 100,000 or 150,000 if it's lucky. And so it'd be a financial decision as well as a moral one for SBS.
Definitely. And I love Eurovision. I've been to Eurovision a number of times with SBS. I think it's a great show for them. It's a great marquee show for them. And they're, I guess, in a little bit of a rock and a hard place. But if these broadcasters don't make these hard decisions, how do things change? If pressure is not applied, how do things change? If pressure is not mounted, things continue as they are.
I do have, I've dug up a couple of little fun clips of when you were in Eurovision.
Hola! This year, Eurovision is in sunny Lisbon, which I can already confirm is about 1,000 times better than Melbourne and 10,000 times better than Adelaide.
I dug that out for the Melbourne audience.
Okay, yeah.
But the good news is you score better than Adelaide.
Yeah, you do. But Lisbon is better than Melbourne. But Melbourne is better than Sydney. And we're both from Sydney.
Yeah,
exactly.
But you did, also to demonstrate the Jan of yesteryear, this was you all hopeful and excited at another Eurovision.
Hey, it's a matter of when, not a matter of if.
Well, let's just say Eurovision in Australia 2020.
2020 all the way.
Yes.
2020 to Eurovision in Australia in 2020.
Cheers.
Cheers!
And how much change, Jan?
Oh my God, 2020 all the way, you guys. Yeah, no, we didn't get Eurovision, but we did get the plague. And then I got a baby.
Yeah, you got knocked up.
I got knocked up. And then we got some degree of civilizational collapse. So no Eurovision yet. But what a time.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge networks that are, having some tough decisions to make.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction.
Right?
So good.
It was a good joke.
It is such a good joke. But I think the most interesting takeaway from that is that people reached out to me and were like, Antoinette, help Jimmy Kimmel. Antoinette, you've dealt with those ABC clowns. Help Jimmy Kimmel. And then there were these hashtags like Kimmel and Latoof. And there's so much confusion. Firstly, in discussing this, I had so many times confused that Jimmy for the other Jimmy late night guy. And on the one hand, it's like, we're seeing straight white men being cancelled. Welcome to the club. Yeah. But also so I was confused on the one hand, but people have been complaining to ABC Australia, so much so that the ABC had to put a statement out today and on their social media going, we have dealt with thousands of complaints about our alleged decision to stand Jimmy Kimmel down. And then I was like, and I wonder if the chair of the board responded directly to those complaints. Or if they were busy wrapping presents. Hard to know if they were busy. Did they wish COVID on Jimmy? We will never know. We will never know. But there's a lot of confusion, and there are a few networks having a hard time having to make some hard decisions.
Yeah,
I did reach out to Jimmy's people. I did a call out. Jimmy, get your people to call my people. We'll sort something out.
Yeah.
I've got you.
Yeah, I'm literally her people. Don't get them to call me. But thank you. So that is my no. What is your no?
Okay, my no goes to News Corp.
Does it?
Yes, but they have ramped up their usual fuckery. Okay, so I am referring to the Jewish Council of Australia ad that got accepted. Then they bumped it for a day to ensure that they did a hit piece about the Jewish Council of Australia to try and water down the ad's message and then read the ad.
Yeah.
But for those who aren't aware of the Jewish Council of Australia, Jan, give us a bit of a background.
Well, it's an organisation that formed in early 2024 in opposition to the genocide in Gaza, and basically, shows a bit of a plurality of, I guess, Jewish perspectives. It was the one that took out this paid advertisement, and it was a bunch of sort of faces. I'm sorry to give this crude depiction, but like very Brady Bunch, the faces in the squares.
There we are.
There we go. But for our viewers that can't see it, it says, there is a genocide in Gaza. Jews say, sanction Israel now. And then you get the faces of a whole host of Jewish people.
So this was obviously a deliberate decision by the Jewish Council of Australia, because they know for the past couple of years that News Corp readers have been fed essentially press releases from the IDF, and they wanted to ensure that there were Jewish people in Australia that cared about human rights, that cared about genocide, rather than all of the articles being run or the focus solely on anti-Semitism. Okay, so Tuesday, 4 p.m, Jewish Council of Australia sends out a newsletter to I'm one of its subscribers, to its mailing list, giving its audience a heads up, or its followers a heads up. Hey guys, this ad's going to come out. Check it out in the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun. Oh, and by the by, it's about genocide, and the UN made a little finding today also about genocide. That happened at 4 p.m. on the Tuesday. At 6 p.m. on the Tuesday, they got a call from the editors at News Corp. They got a call from News Corp saying that the editors hadn't editorially approved the ad. So they're like, hold a second, this is in the sales department. Why did the ads? Like, do your editors editorially approve all of the Harvey Norman ads to ensure that that really is the best price on the stick Dyson? I mean, accuracy matters clearly for News Corp, and so they needed to editorially approve the ad, and so it was held up.
Yeah. Yep, I got that newsletter. It did give us a heads up about the ads and also about the UN stuff. So I thought, oh, wow, okay, there's a lot happening, and I was actually waiting for it to come out.
Yes, and so it didn't come out. And then they got back to them and they said, you know what, it's delayed for a day. And in the time, that day that they needed, it was because the editorial side was just getting warmed up. They had a really important story to get running. And so they decided before the ad would come out, they would write a really investigative piece about the Jewish Council of Australia, describing the pro-Palestinian Jewish group as tiny and sad.
Yes, so I'm just going to read out the headlines for the folks listening to this on the pod. The article that appeared just before the ad was shown was pro-Palestine Jewish group branded tiny and sad by mainstream community leaders.
Okay, and so they've obviously needed to buy a bit of time because they like to do all of their checks and balances, and they contacted the Jewish Council of Australia. Sarah Schwartz got an email saying, can you please respond to allegations such as the fact that you are tiny and sad?
Hello, it is I from News Corp. Are you tiny and sad?
You are tiny and sad and attention-seeking, and please, and then usually you give people a window, a right of reply. Jan, for this really urgent breaking news, how long do you think, because I have cited these emails, do you think the Daily Telegraph gave the Jewish Council of Australia to respond to their very important questions about how sad and tiny they are?
Look, I would say that a reasonable amount of time, and this is being like if you're really on a tight turnaround, like 4 hours.
40 minutes.
No!
They said, please respond within 40 minutes because this is a matter of urgency. We need to get this article published to communicate to everybody just how tiny and sad you are before we publish your ad. So they still took their money. They ran this article on page 12 in the Daily Telegraph, then ran the ad on page 17.
Did the Jewish Council get a refund or some kind of
we need to
special deal here?
I don't know. We need to check that refund policy. And so I spoke to Sarah Schwartz from the Jewish Council of Australia, and she wanted to shed some light not only on how obvious this was in that they were trying to undermine, they were like, we will still take your money, but we're going to land a few punches beforehand, but also the way in which the coverage focused on her.
Hey Eterati, this is Sarah Schwartz from the Jewish Council. These News Corp attacks on us and on Jews speaking out against genocide are becoming pretty petty and personalised in nature. I think the reason for that is because These groups don't have any words left to defend Israel's actions. All they have left is ad hominem attacks. And the types of ad hominem attacks that they are increasingly relying on, I think, are really sexist in nature. You know, it's not lost on me that News Corp keeps using the only image of me on my Instagram, which is me holding a champagne glass. It uses gendered language like attention seeking. And it doesn't, you know, for example, use images of my male co-executive officer. I think it's all really telling. It's all part of this, you know, kind of gross right-wing campaign against women speaking out, against people speaking out against this genocide.
And of course, that article made no such mention of said genocide, despite the fact that 2 days prior, the United Nations had concluded that genocide was unfolding in Gaza. So that is my fuck no.
That is that's the long version. Fuck no.
Yeah.
The short. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, you know, it is as Antoinette said earlier in the show. It is our 3-month anniversary, or if you'd like to put it a different way, our probation period is up. We started this, I guess, launched the media company the day of your federal court win.
Yes.
Which was 3 months ago now. And we were sort of like building the plane as we were flying it.
Yes.
You know? So
I think it's like, we did have an idea, though, thankfully, of what we set out to achieve. You know, we wanted to show that there are diverse viewpoints in the media because it felt increasingly homogenous, that there wasn't a huge difference between some of the narratives or the angles or the coverage of the so-called progressive media outlets to those on the right. We felt obviously both let down by our public broadcaster, even though we love it in so many ways and we've both had long careers there. And we also felt we're in this interesting place where we could straddle like legacy media and old media, but as geriatric millennials, are also online a lot. And so we're kind of like the old and the new, or because the other alternative was just to disappear from public life because it felt we were so disillusioned. Like we couldn't imagine slotting in to a workplace and having an editor and EP go, well, actually, you can't say that. No, it's a military offensive. You'll find that what actually is occurring is a military offensive, or just anything. Like we'd just be like,
or even just to get like how would you get a regular job? Like, what are you going to work in, like a chicken shop? I don't know. Or like, you know, you get customers being like, hang on a second, I know you.
Yeah. So I mean, in
no
short, we had no other choice.
Chicken shops, by the way.
No,
yeah.
But no, we thought like let's give it a crack. And we don't have much of an independent media scene here. And here we are.
And, you know, we thought we'd do a bit of a performance review. So we do have a researcher that I have hired called ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's so great. The researcher is free, does take your soul. Though that's the price that we had to pay. But they came up with a bit of a comprehensive guide as to how we can like just tick off, you know, things that we're doing well or not doing well. And one of the things is that it came back with was, you know, what sort of feedback have you received from your audience? And, you know, the feedback has generally been very positive.
Yeah.
And sometimes very surprising.
Yeah.
And I just want to share with you one surprising element of something that we've received from our audience, because as I said, they're normally geriatric millennials who wear Gorman, which is great. But this particular person was very much not that, and he's left a comment on our YouTube channel saying, just to let you lovely ladies know, I'm a 42-year-old tradesman, rough as they get, blunt as they get, and listen to you whilst on the job site. Yes.
Yeah. What we don't have from ChatGPT, even though they gave you some pointers, I do want to get into my audience, but I do feel like we missed a step in the performance review, because I often say to you, you know, like, I think we need an HR department, even though I don't particularly like HR departments because, you know, I haven't had wonderful experience with an HR department. But we have a very flat structure. We're partners. It's, you know, we decide on the go. You know, sometimes we don't always agree, but we're figuring it out. We have other friends in the independent media sphere that we lean on sometimes for advice. And just to get a sense of like, how wonderful it is to be part of like a sort of a woman-led, flat management structure. Here's like a snippet of a chat that we had this morning. And these are the sorts of conversations we constantly have, where Jan responds with the knife emoji. And I say, Jan, like, I'm going to tell HR that you keep telling me that you'll kill me.
Yes.
And to which she responds, I'll kill you. So, I mean, just
for
going
clarity,
really well, like women, supporting women. It's beautiful. It's just...
Let's be clear for our listeners who are listening to this in their ears. The following message reads, "Morning, cunt. My Uber arrived 7:41 a.m. Meet me at the front of the terminal. I have too many bags to manage. Tar." And then I reply with a knife emoji. And she says, "I'm telling HR about the repeated knife emojis and how you tell me I'll kill you." And then I reply, "I'll kill you." And if I had to tell you how many times I've woken up to a message that started with "morning, cunt," it's been at the very least 10 times, which is 10 times too many to wake up to a message that starts that way. Another thing is the ChatGPT suggestion was, how are you taking care of yourself while running this? And no, we're not. Which I think we have to get a little bit better at, because I found it a little bit challenging. And one of the, actually, on a kind of a genuine note, we took so long to launch this business because I was so hesitant about being so online.
Yeah.
Because I find it very distressing and just very heightened, and the volume is turned up to the highest level. It's frenetic. And I didn't want to navigate that even more than what I had already been navigating that.
Has it made it any easier or any better? Because, rather than just consuming, we're also creating content for that world.
I feel like it has, in a way.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit more structured, and there's like there's a purpose to the doom scrolling now a little bit, where you can kind of say, all right, well, I'm going to take it all in, and then I'm going to try and turn it into something and produce something as a result, and that does feel better. But it's always going to be an issue of management.
And I mean, the reality is, we know that we are constantly surveilled. Like I was already, and you as well. I know that everything I say, everything I do, everything I post, everything I wear is being watched, because I mean, people are just, Daily Telegraph has already drafted an article about how tiny and sad I am, and they can't wait to roll it out. And so it's knowing that we are being surveilled by some very powerful people. Thankfully, we've only had a couple of attacks from the Daily Mail and the Australian. I expected more.
Don't say that. Don't evil eye.
I'm not evil eye, but it's just the reality of existing. It's the reality of trying to do something different. And I've been pleasantly surprised. Is that it's a weird way to put it, but pleasantly surprised that it hasn't been as bad as as I expected and I thought.
The one thing I will say is that it feels kind of scary, but it also feels right.
Yeah.
And that has been, a point of solace for me, I think.
And I think another thing that has really provided us with a lot of support is, not YouTube, even though we're venturing on YouTube. I'm going to get to the solace and support before in a moment, but I'm going to talk about Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Piers Morgan first, just briefly, because what we're doing also by being online is, like, we are obviously on Instagram, you're off X, but we're venturing into YouTube, which is...
Can you tell we're geriatric millennial women?
Well, not only that, because the people who respond on YouTube and engage on YouTube tend to be men over 60. So we're dabbling into a market that's not our usual audience, which is both interesting and terrifying, because in the comments they were like, yeah, great point, because Tucker Carlson said. I was like, oh, this is an interesting Venn diagram.
Right, in terms of where have they placed us?
Where
in
have they
the
placed
ecosystem?
Yes,
okay,
that there's obviously a gap, and we're trying to do something that a lot of commentators and journalists and independent, whatever you want to call them, broadcasters in the UK and in the US are doing, but it hasn't been done as much here in Australia. It certainly hasn't been done by two females. So that is exciting, but a little bit terrifying to kind of be in that algorithm. And have referrals from Tucker Carlson. It's just odd. I'm just putting it out there. That is odd.
It's been great seeing, because there's other kind of independent media outfits that have also sprung up or are, really growing in the last year. I mean, Lamestream, which is started by Scott Mitchell and Oz Faruqi, both Oz used to work for the Nine papers. Scott has worked across the Australian media. Deep Cut, started by Antoinette, former Guardian journalist, and Alex McKinnon, also a former journalist. There's Cheek, that's started by Hannah Ferguson. Even Punters Politics online, and he does his thing, and
obviously Crikey has been around and doing its thing for a long time, Women's Agenda. But it feels like definitely in the past couple of years, and it's exciting for us because we want to see them thrive. In some ways, people are like, well, aren't they your competitors? Well, no, because we need an ecosystem, and we need audiences to have other options, because at the moment Australia is the second most, well, in terms of media concentration, we have the second highest media concentration in the world, only after Brazil, which I found random. Brazil has more concentrated media. So it's, the Nine newspaper, Seven West Media, Murdoch, and us and 6 of our mates running independent media companies.
It's like Rupert Murdoch, Kerry Stokes, and Antoinette. That's same media moguls,
But I think what demonstrates the real appetite and the need for it is how many people reach out to us, even though we think our remit is clear, that we do media literacy and critique, and we break down broken news. Thank you to our listener who gave us that tagline. But so many people get in touch with us who have story ideas. They're like, we're from this, nobody will publish this, and we try and sort of redirect them to other people. But there are clearly so many stories that aren't being told, which shows that there is a need for it. But it's about us being sustainable, because do you know how hard it is to be ethical and make money? Do you know how hard it is? When we go through our ads list, and we get a lot of feedback from our very passionate followers and listeners and subscribers who we adore. But when we go through the ads list on the ads that we can play, we're like, okay, no to mining, BDS, no, bad for the environment, gambling, weight loss, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we are left with TAFE New South Wales. Like there's very little, it's very fast fashion, no.
Yeah.
And so we will be doing, compare the markets and TAFE New South Wales and...
now every time there's an inbox an email that lands in the inbox that's like, the title subject line is ad on podcast. I'm like, fuck.
What got through now? What got through now? And so,
but that's fair. It's fair criticism.
It is, but there's a sustainability argument as well, and growing, and a lot of a lot of if you were to do branded partnerships, they often talk about like brand safe, like they want to align with a media outlet that is brand safe, and it's just like ain't nothing brand safe about us. Like we talk about genocide, we talk about climate, we talk about fascism, we talk about criminalization of protest. We talk about so many things that like Libra will be like, Libra Wings will be like, love that it's female-led, not very brand safe. You
don't know that about Libra. We haven't even reached out to them. They might. Maybe we should.
I mean, sure, but just broadly, there is a reticence and a fear about what is considered brand safe, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but it's likely not us.
Yeah, and that has been that is a genuine challenge for us in a way that it might not exist as a genuine challenge for other podcasters who talk about, other issues such like food. We have a friend who's a food podcaster. Great. Lots of people want to advertise on a food podcast because it's relevant. Kitchen items, supermarkets, food products, whatever it is. Other people talk about like health and beauty and science and wellness. News in and of itself is a hard category to sell, let alone within that category where you are talking about, Palestine is the big one, genocide, all of the other things that you mentioned. Yeah. And you can tell because we've got, someone who is a mate of ours and he knows about ad sales, and we've had a couple of conversations with him, and you can tell when his voice goes high,
yeah, he's like,
you know that he's hesitating a little bit. And we're like, what about this person? He's like, Okay, all right, Tom.
But in good news, before we pivot to the It's a Yes from me, the section that I insist we have just to remind us and everybody that we aren't just negative moles, and we do have some good things to say. we are growing and our subscriber base is growing, and so much so that we've taken on a staff member who we announce soon, which is very exciting. We have some big things happening in 2026.
Yep.
And
and look at all of you.
So we're trying to do things a new way, an ethical way, a sustainable way, and a way that we think is the right way. It is exciting.
It is. It is very exciting.
Onwards and upwards, fewer knife emojis, and we're good. What is your yes?
My
Jan?
yes from me. My yes from me. Okay. I'm going to go with a Melbourne lad. And look, I've shouted out this guy before just because I think his stuff is so fucking funny. I know that some of you will probably know who he is, but he is a comedian called Greg Larsen. Do we know Greg? Who knows Greg Larsen here? Okay. One person, Greg. You'll be very, very happy to know if you're listening to the show. It's the geriatric millennials of Nam, Greg. Don't worry, they're our audience. But Greg is a very, very funny comedian, but he's been doing these these monologues on his podcast, The Greg Larsen Show. He's done 2 on Israel, and they go for like 2 hours. But the last one that he did is called Remembering Charlie Kirk. And so, right, hey, I know there's all sorts of feelings about that.
But he's so funny.
He's so funny.
I haven't gotten through it all, but it's so funny.
One of the things that I'm slowly kind of realising in this time, which has discombobulated me a bit, is I always thought journalism was a mechanism for truth-telling. And now I'm veering so much more towards the poets and the comedians and the writers
who are actually telling stories and telling the truth via their vehicles and avenues.
Yes. Yeah. And I find it just a much more honest truth-telling mechanism. And when I listen to, it's almost cathartic listening to the latest episode of Greg's podcast. So it's called Remembering Charlie Kirk. If you look up The Greg Larsen Show, wherever you get your podcasts, it will come up. It goes for about half an hour. I'm not going to give you any more information about it. Just listen to it and enjoy yourselves.
Mine is an Australian journalist who is doing journalism, just asking questions and asking a follow-up, and the fact that seems to be so egregious. But before I play the exchange between Donald Trump and John Lyons, ABC journalist who is at the time doing a story for Four Corners, I want to explain to you, does anybody know what a doorstop is? Yeah, so a doorstop it's generally when, you can have a press conference where it's pre-planned and there's microphones. A doorstop is generally when a journalist can sort of like pounce and ask somebody a question, and it's not in a formal environment. And, as a commercial journo, just bear with me, Jan, I know we're got to get to our questions, but as a former commercial journo, some of the horrible doorstops you would have to do is outside of court. It's like, did you really kill them? What did you do with the mushrooms? And that's like, or, horribly, if somebody has died, you can do a doorstop or a death knock where it's like at somebody's door, literally at somebody's door, where it's just like, and how do you feel about said person that lives in your house dying? It's awful. Anyway, and so this is not obviously a formal environment. I don't know why they keep doing the doorstops next to a chopper. The audio is terrible, but you see heaps of Donald Trump talking in his hair. It's terrible for his hair. It's terrible for the audio. But here is the exchange between John Lyons, who obviously did not get any approval, to ask these questions.
How much wealthier are you now than when you returned to the White House?
Well, I don't know. The deals I made, for the most part, other than what my kids are doing, they're running my business. But most of the deals that I've made were made before. And that's what I've done for a life. I've built buildings, like I'm building a building here. You know where I'm building? You know what? You see that?
The construction talk again.
That is going to be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. And for 150, so it gives me pleasure to do it for the country.
But is it appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity?
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. Your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone. Go ahead.
That's the whole, the dibby-dobber vibes are strong there. But then they followed up on Twitter by saying, I'll just find that tweet. Okay. POTUS smacks down a rude foreign fake news loser. Many such cases, inverted, and they quote Trump quiet, because then later he goes quiet to him. So POTUS smacks down a rude foreign fake news loser. And that's from the POTUS account.
Okay.
Wild. And then John Lyons gets banned from a UK press conference where President Trump and the British Prime Minister are speaking because he asked a very simple question. Like that to me that's not a tough interview. He just did not like those questions.
Yeah.
So
this guy is a no from me.
Yes, but John Lyons is a yes for this and a couple of reasons.
Yes.
He's spoken and done his job and not abandoned his craft, and this is not the first time.
Yes, indeed. So that is the yes.
I'm just going to add one more.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
John Lyons was also, the only person at the ABC who, after the leaks and the WhatsApp leaks, which showed the lobbying of the ABC chair and the exchanges, he said at the time, when I read those WhatsApp messages for the first time ever, and hopefully the last time ever, I felt embarrassed to work for the ABC. I was embarrassed that a group of 156 lawyers could laugh at how easy it was to manipulate the ABC. And he said that at that time, the ABC faced one of its darkest days. And we've previously talked about the lack of prominent journalists or people coming out and saying anything. And
he was one of the few that did, yeah.
Said it really clearly, really loudly. And now... I love him, and Donald Trump doesn't like him. But
so that says something.
Yeah, it does say something.
Yeah.
But that is my yes.
Yes. Amazing. All right. We're going to open the floor up to some questions. Who has a question? Just raise your hand. Somebody will get a microphone.
And we have an Etterati T-shirt to give away.
Oh, yes, we do.
Jan will take questions. I will take compliments.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't get enough from Jan. Jan, you did say you were going to work on it.
I did say I was going to work on it.
Something else I'll bring up with HR.
I'm sure you guys all listen to the podcast. You know that I don't compliment too freely.
Yes.
Yes,
or
I believe
ever.
the one last week my best compliment to you was you are not a shithead. Yes. Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
over to you guys.
All right,
questions.
who's got some questions? Yes.
I think it's me. Hello, I'm Danielle. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Hello, Danielle.
Hi, I'm getting all nervous.
No, don't be nervous, Danielle.
Yeah, so you guys were talking a lot about consuming versus creating. The idea of independent media and I guess the idea of journalists and their responsibilities over time. I studied to be a journalist. I work in media. We talk about consumer versus creating and the idea that people are more so now working online. I feel like a lot of more discourses are, being echo chambery. What do you think about how we should, work together on media and critical analysis skills? Because I guess the idea of being a journalist and studying that, critical thinking skills are core. But I think we still have responsibility as journalists to tell the truth regardless, right? So, with the idea of creative industry, whatever we do is, really important. How do we, I guess, create more public spaces like this with the Wheeler Centre? I think coming back from London recently, this is really an important place for us to talk about these problems. But I think people spending time online and being a bit more severed, what do you think about how we should approach that together?
Well, look, I'll tell you one thing that I would love to see. I would love to see a little bit more, I guess, introspection and reckoning among the media class in this country. And I'll give you an example of why I don't think that that's happening. One of the talks that you and I and our colleague Noor Haider, who works at The Guardian, did, we did a talk in Melbourne and we did a talk in Sydney, and it was about, media reporting on Palestine.
With Amnesty International.
We ended up doing that with Amnesty International. Now, that's not a media organisation, but they were the one organisation that was prepared to host a discussion like that. And I think those discussions are discussions that should be had within media organisations. And I know that there are discussions happening in newsrooms right around the country across a bunch of different networks and broadcasters and newspapers. But I think that they should be had in a public way and hopefully, and I really honestly pray for this, with the buy-in of, the editors and those that actually run those ships. And we're yet to see that happen. So the leadership's got to be there, I think, is a big one. Yeah. Who's next? Where do we have?
Hi, my name's Eleanor. I'm going to make a small plug for my current favourite band, who are an Irish hip-hop band called Kneecap, who I'm sure many people here are familiar with. They actually rap in Irish Gaelic, and largely, I believe, for their support of Palestine and against Gaza, they've now been banned from entering Canada for their sold-out show next month. What do we do about the silencing and censoring of voices on the left? Kneecap, Jimmy Kimmel, what do we possibly do as a community against it?
Oh, gosh. Great question. And look, it's happening in so many public ways. With Kneecap, people have been made an example of, people with public profiles, but it's happening. I think what bothers and worries me so much is it's happening to teachers, it's happening to doctors who are stood down pending an investigation, which means they can't treat their patients. In one case, I know that there's a surgeon whose patients require life-saving surgery, and because of these nefarious sort of complaints and lobbying, cannot do his job. I don't know what we do. We don't normalise it. We keep fighting back. We keep trying to tell those stories. And when we say there's an endless stream of stories, our inbox is full of so many of these sorts of stories. We cannot possibly we don't cover breaking news, but there are so many stories that are just not being told. The scale of it and just how many people are being effectively silenced or having their livelihoods taken from them, or just like stood down. You know, even if you end up getting your job back, that has a silencing effect, and it will definitely make people think twice about continuing to talk. So I think we continue to name it, and we do the best we can in amplifying it.
Look, I'm going to tell you the one thing that I'm coming to really realise in this time is the answer to that question is stand with Palestinians. And the reason that I say that that's the answer to that question is because they are, so to speak, the canary in the coal mine of this. Because before Jimmy Kimmel, there was a teacher. And before there was a teacher, there was a doctor. And before there was a doctor, there was Antoinette. And before there was Antoinette, there was a Palestinian who was saying things in a workplace, who was writing a book, who was going on tour, who was creating work, who was speaking about this, who was cancelled. And this was happening well before October 7. So now we're seeing the reverberations of that. And if you don't want to see those reverberations, well, you need to go back to that, the OG, and it is Palestinians that are primarily being cancelled. So stand with them wherever you can and show solidarity publicly. And solidarity is different to sympathy and different to empathy. Solidarity is when you also risk something, right? That's hard. I'm not saying that that's not hard. I'm not going to take anything away from somebody that is struggling to do that, but that's what needs to happen. Yeah. Next question.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
You've mentioned...
I was looking at a bearded man over there, and then I heard your voice. And I was like, oh, but that makes more sense, yep.
It's so cool being here with you guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Compliment appreciated.
You've mentioned on the podcast before about not knowing what to say to young multicultural journos, because the industry feels a bit hopeless at the moment.
And unsafe.
And it's already so hard to get your foot in the door of one of those big outlets. Is there any point in walking through?
Jan, I'm a trauma myself out of this. Like I think I'm too close to it to answer fairly, I think.
I'm going to tell you honestly that this is something that we are really reckoning with. Do you go into these institutions and try and put a perspective forward and try and show that lived experience is important and try and be part of the editorial decision-making process and try to positively change things from the inside? Or do you say they are beyond redemption, they're, unsafe, whatever it is, and we need to build something new from the ground up? There's not an easy answer to that question. I think the closest answer is that it's not mutually exclusive. Two things can and should happen at the same time. Again, it comes down to the leadership in those organisations, because if you are the only brown person in that organisation and it's a topic that is, about your community, it will be a burden to you to be in that room, because it will be on your shoulders to try and represent it correctly, and it's not fair. And there needs to be a recognition of that. Again, it comes back to the leadership within these media organisations.
May I recommend that you read Black Witness by Amy McQuire? Before, when you were talking about, stand with and centre Palestinians, First Nations communities have grappled with this. Are we safe? Can our stories be told? Will we ever have editorial influence in legacy media? Amy McQuire investigates all of that, and I think she does a really good job. And she makes the argument for needing an ecosystem outside. But yeah, I think again, when we are unsure, we try and look to those who've come before us and lean on their experiences. And so I would say I'd revert to Amy McQuire and her views.
Oh, well, you're never going to get into journalism now.
I mean, yes, you can, but just a different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too late. Shit. Where have you gone? Where have you gone into?
No, yeah, maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe not.
I'm not sure I can say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, she's gone into the Secret Service, so that's. She's now works for ASIO. That's all right. That's all good. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll talk more. Come see us after the show. There's more.
How about this? We can't answer about the state of the industry or give you the pep talk that I would have given you 3 years ago, but we can give you a T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. How about that?
You
how about
get a T-shirt. All right, we'll go to our bearded gentleman there who is waiting to ask a question.
Hello. Sorry for almost cutting you off before. I wasn't looking that way. I'm Andy. It's really good to be here tonight. And one of the things that you've both said before, and some other commentators have said before as well, is the feeling of when you watch mainstream news coverage of things like the genocide in Gaza, that you do feel like you're going insane. And I really did feel that a lot. And I've really enjoyed your podcast. And one of the really concerning political trends has been the silencing of voices. Don't have to tell you, Antoinette, with the ABC case and everything, but that's happening a lot. And my question is, when you run an independent news outlet like Ette, like Lamestream, like Cheek Media, do you experience pressure in the background or, attempts to silence what you're saying that we maybe don't see? Is that an influence? You might not be able to answer that. But
no, I think we can. The only thing that I have noticed as in external influences is Zuckerberg's algorithm sometimes doesn't like to. We can tell when we've been shadow banned, when our content doesn't. We're not at the mercy of anybody who says you can't talk about that, you can't, run that ad, I'll kill you. No, it's us and our growing team. However, we know that so much of our reach relies on different social media outlets, and we know that they can change their algorithms or their policies or their monetization or whatever at a whim. And so one of the challenges, I think, for us is to ensure that we have a direct relationship with subscribers and via newsletters, so that we're not at the mercy of Zuckerberg and the like. Yeah, the short answer is absolutely not. We don't have anyone deciding our editorial line at all, except the two of us. Yeah. And there's relationships that you have to form. There'll be brands that come on or whatever, sponsorships or money given. There is always, and this is a red line and it never crosses, there's always a red line that there is no involvement in editorial on their part at all. Yeah. And there never will be. But we are open to audience capture like anyone else. If where people follow us for a certain reason, if there's, for whatever reason, we divert from the usual content that we produce, or we might take a different line on something that our audience and subscribers might not agree with, that's something that we'll also have to take into account. That's a very kind of real thing. But for the most part, no, we decide the editorial line from start to finish. Yeah. Probably have time for a couple more questions.
Thanks. This is a really selfish question, but with everything that we are witnessing coming out of Gaza, how do you continue to parent
Oh, that's a good
don't
one. Last
ask
time I
that
talked about that, I
question.
cried a lot.
Yeah, I can't ask any more than that.
Yeah. Okay, and it's not a selfish question. You didn't preface that with a selfish as a selfish question.
No.
Look, it's really hard. The amount of times I have shrieked at my children because they won't finish their food, and because I cannot stand watching food go to waste and children not eating. And I realise that I'm getting angry, and I'm getting angry at them because it's food, and and I'm like, oh my God, she just doesn't want to finish those beans, and I'm like, you have to eat it. You know how they're not eating in Gaza? Look at this. And one time I even like, look at this picture of the starving child. And then my daughter's like, Mommy, why did you show that? I'm like, why did I show that? And I feel like it's incredibly hard. It's hard to be present. It's hard to not diminish. And I'm working really hard to affirm the concerns that my children have that are very real and big for them, which to me are like, oh, is that really a big deal? Because you seem pretty healthy and happy to me. And there was a moment where my daughter broke her finger the other day, and we went to the hospital, and she had to get it was a horrible break, and it had to get put back in place, and she had anaesthetic, and how much she was crying and the level of care she got. And I was crying, and I wasn't crying for my daughter, I was crying for the children and the care that they don't get, and the anaesthetic that they don't get.
Yeah. No, so we're constantly on the verge of tears is something that you might have realised about us. It is. It's
really hard.
Yeah, it is. It just sits very much under the surface because we both are parents, and, I have a 3-year-old as well. It's difficult sometimes, I think, to look at your children when you're seeing so many images of abject horror come out of Gaza. And, there were moments where I would have very intrusive thoughts and see, my son with limbs missing and, bleeding and all sorts of things. But, I've just tried to always try and remember that action is the antidote to despair. And you always need to come back to that. You always need to ask yourself, what is it that I can do? Not so much what is it that I can think or how is it that I can feel, but what is it that I can do? And the way to action something is always to be in service of something outside of yourself. And so you parent in that manner, and I would say that move forward through the world with an action that also is in service of something outside of yourself. And if the issue is Palestine, then you need to think of what that action can be, and there are plenty. But that really is not just the way, I think, to parent in this time, but also to be in this time. So always come back to that. Action is the antidote to despair. And you're right to ask that question because it is unfathomable at this point, what we're seeing and the fact that it has been allowed to happen. And I would look around at all of the people in this room who are the community, build that. Build community around you. That's really important too.
We'll take one last question.
Yeah. But remember, we're a media literacy podcast. No, don't shy away from whatever question you're going to ask. Go on.
Hi, my name's Persephone.
Hi.
And I'm organising a panel for the Odyssey Literary Festival on freedom of speech in the media. And my question to you is, what is one Australian voice that you would think is vital for that panel?
Freedom of speech in the media.
I can. Do you have anyone else on that? Have you got anyone or? Sorry, say that again.
We're thinking of lamestream at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I would get, any journalist that's kind of taken a little bit of a step back from the mainstream media and is able to kind of criticise it from the outside a little bit. So, yeah, whether that's lamestream.
John Lyons. I'm going to put John Lyons forward.
Go for John. If you really wanted a panel on freedom in the media, you'd get, one of the editors of the major papers or one of the editors of the news networks and ask them.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question because even during that Amnesty International panel on the press and, freedom of the press and interrogating Palestine, it was myself, Noor Haider, and Jan Fran. And we were like, why is it us? Why is it only us? Why is it almost always us? Where are the editors? Where are the people with power? Where's the news director from the ABC? Where's somebody from the Journalists Union? So yes, like someone like John Lyons, but go to the people who have the power and need to answer tough questions. I don't know if they'll say yes, but they certainly should be asked, and they certainly should feel that they need to be part of the conversation. If they choose to, hide from that or decline, that's on them.
Yep. One last question, if we've got one. Okay, there's just one there. Let's just get that mic over to you.
This one, you said you were inviting compliments, so this one was just to say thank you, and it might be diverting from the news a bit, but I just wanted to say I'm out of breath because I'm pregnant.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm barely talking, but I'm out of breath. I just wanted to say thank you for having the strength to talk about. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
You're
good. You're good.
I think I'm too pregnant for this. The strength to talk about P&D in your podcast when you're doing the summary, and for being vulnerable enough. And I think I felt that the strength that you had in defending your mental capacity, in turn, I think helped a lot of us, a lot of women, to speak about it. And I know it would have been hard. So in that thank you for getting through the whole court case.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what? I think that might be a fabulous note to end on. Thank you very much for, it wasn't even a question, it was a compliment. Yes.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much to the Wheeler Centre for having us.
Yes. And last but not least, thank you to Antoinette for getting through that court case. Yes. And I just want to say a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. I couldn't believe it that we sold out in just a few hours. I know that you're picking up exactly what it is that we are putting down, and we love you for it. You are our community. You show up. Thank you so much for eschewing the Collingwood whatever game and being here to talk about media literacy with us. We love you so much, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
And there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of We Used To Be Journos as much as we enjoyed recording it in front of a live audience in Melbourne. Thank you to everyone who came out to see us, and thank you to all of you legends for watching and listening week after week after week. And a massive shout out to each and every single one of you who support us, not just with your likes and shares and comments and reviews, but also with your dollars. It makes our work possible, and we love you for it. We will be back in the studio next week. See you then.